No, we wait for you guys. I just wanted to make sure I was on time. He's got me mic straight up. He can put onto there. But, I mean, if you want to also, I don't know, I can hang a bunch of things on here. Yeah, so I got my pocket.
And I've got on boards, Drew, that'll get some of it, but I just ran that in case it's not amplified, obviously, but it'll give you something to talk to.
I think we've got a couple more people on the way. I want to say.
So it turns out that as somebody who's not really political, I'm a technology guy, and you see all of these solutions that are well known in the technology spectrum that have been deployed in other places. Even just basic retail theory that could be applied to state government if somebody actually knew enough about how to do it. And so it started out kind of the genesis of, man, wouldn't it be great if somebody who knew something about that could deploy these things. I mean, to give an example, the disaster that happened when the Obamacare national system launched and failed instantly. So, I designed software. So if I had that spec in front of me, I would have seen it and been like, oh, hey, hold on, this is not working. And it has to do with the way software is built, obviously. But so it started out as that, and then it sort of went to the general problem of they're starting to get candidates running for office anymore. Most of the political parties are not doing a good job of getting this option. And the extra problem being the political parties will not take the options from the other parties. They both don't have all the good ideas. The problem is that if you elect one party or the other, you're completely writing off all the other side stuff. And that's not good. I mean, that's not a way to handle it. I think they would do some research on some of these things. No, here's an example. So I looked at right here. So I'm agnostic on this. My personal bias is I don't like unions because they're lazy, but I don't have a problem with what they do. So I look into it to see what the research says. The research is inconclusive. So right now, and somebody at some point might come up with something more conclusive, and I'll take a look at it. But the problem is that if you have somebody in office who doesn't care what the research says, you know what you get on right to work based on which party gets in there. The problem is, it either is or is not a good idea to do it. And I currently can't tell right now, but you're not going to get that level of consideration from anybody who's in a party. They're going to see who donated to my campaign, and then make the decision based solely on that and nothing else. So that's sort of the problem. Is the only way to circumvent this is to get elected without a party.
Realistically, you sound like a sharp guy. What are your chances? Because this is a definite uphill battle for you.
It is. But I think they're pretty good because everybody's desperate for a candidate that's actually got ideas and solutions to things, and I happen to have them. And Kentucky is an interesting state because we are fairly independent-minded. Most people that I talk to actually claim to be independent, even if they're registered to one party or the other. And, the fact that we have a split legislature, the fact that at the federal level it's Republican, at the state level it's Democrat, means that some voters have to be switching sides at some point. So given that that's the case, and given that in a three-way race you don't need 50%, you need 34%, I think it's pretty good. I have 8% already, and that's with no polling, or no advertising at all. I've been asked to put me on a poll, I show up at 8%. I haven't spent a dime on advertising yet, and that's not a source of pride necessarily. I would love to spend $1 million on advertising. If I could fundraise that tomorrow, I would buy $1 million of advertising. So don't get me wrong, but just to be able to pull that level right now shows there's deep dissatisfaction with the choices we have. Talking to individuals who've come up to me, they said, you know what, at the 4th of July parade in Lexington, there were people coming up and signing a petition with Bevin stickers and with Conway stickers on, and all of them said, I'm signing this because I don't like my own candidate, but I'm afraid of the other guy more, and you're not going to do the things that I'm afraid they're going to do. That's absolutely right, I'm not. So given all of those things, and the fact that on the Democrat side in the primary, 20 to 25% of people voted against Conway, so they're available. On the Republican side, 72% of them voted against Bevin for somebody else. And that's a lot of votes that are potentially in play. So that's just, we're going to go see. I feel that there are enough people who want somebody who's got solutions to be in office that this could possibly work. Or to put it another way, what I've actually said all the time is if everybody who thought government didn't work for them came out and voted, I win in a landslide. And notice I didn't say vote for me. I'm just pretty sure I'll get most of them.
Sorry, I jumped in late. I just wanted to ask, what do you think qualifies you to be a good governor?
Yeah, so what's nice about the fact that Bevan is in the race is that sort of throws the experience question out the door. I am extremely qualified at solving problems in a vacuum. I started a digital media website in 1999, almost before digital media was a thing. It was definitely before digital advertising was a thing. It was 6 years before digital advertising showed up. And I didn't know anybody who did a media company or digital space or whatnot. I am currently highly connected to Silicon Valley, but back when I started, I was not, and I didn't know anybody doing this. So I did what anybody would do in that situation. I figured it out. And in particular, I think that's kind of the thing that needs to be done in the government level, in the sense that, there's the way things have always been done that we don't like. And I would like to sort of get in there, take a step back and say, okay, so is there a different way to do this? Is there a better way to do this? What are we actually trying to do here, and is there a better solution? And always retaining the option of not doing anything, just in case. Because we don't have to move on all this stuff. If I can't figure out a clear answer, we can sit. So that's what qualifies me, is that I'm very, very adept at adding technological solutions to problems that haven't had one before.
Which direction would you take Kentucky in?
So one of the things that the Conway campaign has been saying is that Bevan wants to take us back to the 19th century. I would argue the Conway campaign wants to keep us in the 20th. The only way to get to the 21st century is to have somebody who has some idea about how technology actually works and applies. And this is a nitpick, but for example, both candidates are under the impression that the speed of the internet is the problem. It's not the speed, it's the bandwidth. The speed of light is the same everywhere, unless you have a lot of gravity nearby and then it slows down. But neither here nor there. The upshot is that if you don't know how to deploy these new technologies, you can't do it effectively. And that's one of the main things I bring to the table. So I like to say, let's put all this partisan stuff on hold for a little bit, and then let's see where we can go from there, is sort of the general idea. Let's try some new stuff, but also at the same time, I'm promising no experiments at the same time, which is basically if something has never been tried before, we will not be the first to do it. I would encourage Indiana to get right on it, however, and then we can copy them once they prove the case. So that's sort of the way I tend to do it. It's a business conservative level approach to handling the problem.
Business conservative is the way you lean. So socially.
I call myself socially agnostic, honestly, which I think is why everybody thinks I'm libertarian. I'm not libertarian. I don't think any one particular political philosophy has all the solutions that we need, but there's some good ideas in all of them. Just got to pick and choose between them. But my thing is, let's give you an example. So my company, FARC, has been around for 16 years, and I self-funded it. And that, in retrospect, it would have been way better to go raise some money. I tried, but it was 2000. I couldn't do it. So in the process of self-funding, the problem you have is that there is a zero that you can hit in your bank account that wipes you out. And so as a result, you have to take risks that you know absolutely will actually succeed. And there have been things that I have known would work in the past that I could have implemented in my own company that I didn't because hitting the zero balance wiped us out. Too dangerous. And I think that's a great approach for government, is how you should do that basically. It's like, don't spend money you don't have. Is this actually going to return $2 for every one? And then if we don't know, we've got time. Let's be patient and see what we can figure out.
Okay. So you're fiscally conservative.
Yes. Well, you know what? I've noticed nobody's fiscally liberal. Nobody wants to grab that ground. I'm certainly not, but I think I'm more conservative than, when you're self-made and your company is only funded by your own cash and you run out and you hit zero, that makes you super, super conservative.
Well, what would you say Kentucky needs help with? What would you change?
So there's actually three major things. And you guys want to set up more mics, by the way, because I don't mind. I'm going to be here a while. I'm not going to be like 15 minutes and out. I'll answer all the questions you have. I promise not to berate your choice of job and accuse you of being somebody's plant. Unless you actually are, let me know.
Did you have some opening words?
I haven't got to it yet. We just started talking, and so we're hitting most of them as it is anyhow.
Here's what we can do. Drew's got some remarks prepared, and after he gives them, we can do a Q&A after that, and he'll probably answer some of your questions to that.
I'll stay here until you're done. So I'm not one of those guys that'll run off. So if you guys want to stack up microphones, we can do that, and then we'll figure it out. And then let me know how to do this because this is my first one. So if doing it wrong, that would let you know. There we go. Bring this. It's all the way up. It's all the way up. So I'll give you the prepared remarks and then we can just launch into it. I've already used some of this already. So my name is Drew Curtis and I'm not a politician. I'm a self-made entrepreneur and a technologist, however. For those of you who don't know me, I run a digital media website called Fark.com. The best description I can give of what Fark is it's what if the Daily Show ran the Drudge Report. My wife Heather and I have owned and operated this company and run it out of our house for the past 16 years, propelling ourselves into legendary status in Silicon Valley. Millions of people have visited my website. Most people who are busy have not heard of it, I've discovered. If you like to waste time, you probably already know about it. But busy people have not, so for those people who this is the first time they've heard of it, you may be interested to know that Fark has been a category on Jeopardy twice, and once during the Tournament of Champions, and I recommend checking the YouTube video out of that because it's pretty neat. Prior to that, my first company was Frankfort's first internet service provider, founded in February of 1996, and it lasted 6 years, and it was actually in an office building right over there. I have spent a lot of time in Frankfort. My experience with state government, it is the only job I held in my entire life for 9 months out of college before I started my first business. And my dad worked for the public defender's office for almost his entire life. And every snow day that we ever had, I ended up spending in the public defender's office in Frankfort, hanging out and talking to state employees and finding out what this is all about. So I've been around it quite a bit. And I actually unofficially assisted them with technology issues back in the early 90s also, just because I happened to be there and I was going to school. So, you know, it seemed like the thing to do. I'm entering this race because I can't sit back anymore and let this continue. The time to start fixing things is now, and I've got over 9,000 signatures. I was told to say almost 10. I'm going to hedge just in case because I don't like overestimating, but I've got the signatures. We only need 5. So far in this campaign, we've heard no actual solutions and very little about Kentucky's actual problems. Jack Conway has yet to say no to any question beginning with the words, "Would you fund this?" And Matt Bevin can't remember what his policy positions are 20 minutes after he says them. Here are the real problems. Number 1, Kentucky's underfunded pension system is on track to bankrupt the state by 2018 at the soonest. We need a more specific jobs plan to provide incentives, more specific than provide incentives and provide training. And furthermore, there was no budget surplus this year. There was money put into the rainy day fund by the administration after they swept it out of the Kentucky employees' health insurance. It's called fund transfer, and apparently this is what they do when they can't figure out how to pay for the laws that they pass. That has to end. I can't figure out why either of the other party candidates is such a rush to be the sitting governor whose administration will go down in history as having presided over the biggest statewide economic collapse in recorded history. You may ask, why do I want to do it? Well, that's because I can fix it. On my website, drewcurtis.com, the campaign website, I've provided a highly detailed potential solution to the Kentucky pension problem, along with a 3-page spreadsheet for anybody who likes math as much as I do. And there's not many people. I came up with this plan by doing something that politicians generally never do. I went and I asked people who knew what the problem was how to fix it. And then I added my own twist. And the short version is that it calls for a bond structured as a line of credit so that in the off chance we get lucky and don't actually need to use it, we don't spend any money on interest. But I can go into great ludicrous detail on that later if you care. It's true that Matt Bevin wants to take Kentucky back to the 19th century, but it is also true that Jack Conway wants to take us back to the 20th. If elected, I can leapfrog us into the 21st century. Kentucky has immense potential. We know government doesn't work for us, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to change this. Kentucky is eager for new ideas. 8,000 signatures. Part of the problem with party politics is that neither party has a monopoly on the good ideas. As an independent, I am the only candidate who can listen to both sides and acknowledge that both Democrats and Republicans have some ideas worth considering. Some people say an independent can't win. The established parties are praying that everyone continues to believe that, because that is the only thing that can stop me. If everyone who ever said government does not work for me comes out and votes in November, I will win in a landslide. And that's a fact. I travel to Silicon Valley in New York all the time, and quite often I get asked, why don't you live in Silicon Valley or New York City given what you do? And I live here because, not just because I was born here. And it's not that I couldn't move away. I love this state. I have friends who tell me that I like the place I live in more than anybody they have ever met. I evangelize Kentucky to Silicon Valley at every opportunity, and they are deeply curious to come and see what's going on out here. I love living here, I love raising my family here, and I love basing my company here as well. Kentucky is ready to try something new. Please allow me to help make Kentucky better. Thank you. And I'll take all the questions you got.
Do you know this is the first time a husband and wife team has ever run?
Yeah, I got asked by a Twitter account called Frankfort Rumor Mill if this will be the first time that the governor would, if elected governor, the governor would ever sleep with a lieutenant governor candidate. And I said, I don't have firsthand knowledge, but probably not.
I know you're running as an independent. Do you align yourself, see yourself more as a Republican or Democrat? Do you line up with any other politics?
Not really. I'm an ultra pragmatist, and that's sort of the problem with those of us who are not political. Is that's why we find it distasteful. Is that there's a belief system in place that blocks people from doing the thing that actually makes the most sense, to the point where they won't even look into whether or not these solutions actually work. I mean, for example, when Romney was against Obamacare, like it or hate it, Romney came up with Obamacare initially and then was against it later. Because the other guys had the idea. They didn't want to give him the credit for it. And that's not a good way to come up with solutions. If anybody comes up with a solution, we'll name it after him. Interestingly, I've been telling people that for a while. I found out that Gatewood Galbraith said that 4 years ago in several speeches. I did not know that until recently, but it's a good thing.
Have you tried to get into any of the debates, the KT debates, a couple of the other televised debates?
Yeah, so they released their criteria. There's a Center College debate coming up. I believe we qualify for that right now, but we have to have a conversation with them about that. The Kentucky debate, the KT debate, is the only thing that we don't have at this point is 10% in a poll, which I would believe by October surely we have. Then the most important debate being the KSR debate, Matt Jones wants to see 10% also, and we hit that and more in.
Why do you see that as the most important?
Because that's the one that reaches people that don't care about politics. When you're reaching people that care about politics, it's mostly people who have already made up their minds about stuff. The vast majority of us care more about how many traffic lights we hit on the way to work than who's running for office. I keep getting asked by my friends who are the other two people in the race. And so given that that's the case, it's like to get on the KSR debate, it's important for two reasons. One, reaches an audience of people who are not political. And two, Matt Jones doesn't let people dodge questions. And that's what makes it a really good debate. And he enforces the time limit, as we saw again at Fancy Farm. So I think it's a great format.
What will be your strategy other than the debates to bring yourself up in the polls?
A lot of social media work. I did not know that in 1999 I had accidentally started a social media company because the term didn't roll around for another 5 years. I know intimately how social media works, down to the most basic level. And given that until campaign contributions increase, which is going to be, that's also going to be tough because I'm not taking influence money, and that's most of the money, as it turns out. But if we can encourage people to donate, actually Larry Lessig has a fantastic TED Talk on this where he talks about influence money in politics. And he points out that if every person in America gave their candidate $5, that would be more than enough money to drown out influence money. So that's sort of going to be the strategy is that I'm just going to take it to the internet, and I'm going to let the people that know what I'm doing carry the message because that's the way you win.
Who do you like the down-ticket candidates? Do you like Republicans and Democrats? Or?
I'll take anybody, honestly. I only just met them or even started thinking about them recently. I would say if you want looking for a high compliment to somebody, Lieutenant Governor candidate on the Republican side is amazing. I really like her. She's neat. We talked about Batman and The Walking Dead for a good half an hour, so she's my kind of people.
Under what scenario do you think you can win this race?
Yeah, so right now I have a ton of people who are very interested in me running because they don't want the other guy to win and they don't have confidence in their own candidate. And so my strategy is going to be, I'm going to actually produce some solutions to some things, as opposed to say my job plan is invest in jobs or incentivize companies. Yeah, okay, but what else? In particular, I'm working on that piece right now, and I really like the KY Fame program, the 22 county initiative that the mayors of Lexington and Louisville set up. That can be expanded to the rest of the state and should be, and that's just the beginning. That's where we should start. So specifically that, because I'm not I am hopeful that we're going to have a good economy for a couple of years, but recessions happen every 5 to 7 years, which means we're going to hit one in 2018 or 2019. Got to be ready. Got to plan for that. So that's sort of the way I'm looking at things.
What about some issues, for example, Medicaid expansion, big issue? Where are you on that?
Yeah, so I looked into this because most of the party candidates seem to have a party opinion about it. It looks like we need to cover 5% of that in 2017. That's going to be something like $75 million. I think we have it, so that'll be all right. 2020, though, it looks like that figure balloons to about $200 million. And the question there is, do we have the money? That's really the main thing I care about. As long as that's the most effective use of the money and that program works, then we're good. And in particular, there's a Deloitte study that the Democrats cite that says that the increased activity in healthcare spending will generate enough tax revenue to pay for itself. And that does appear to be happening. But I am not one to rely on projections. I'll take that as advice and we'll just see how it goes. But if we can afford it, and it is still the best program in 2020, then we'll keep doing it. If we can't afford it or somebody comes up with something better, we'll take a hard look at it, and we'll wait until they get all the bugs out of it first before we jump in, because this is sort of the problem with the blanket statement of I'm going to end, connect, and cancel the Medicare part of it, is that you have to design for the transition. You can't just do that. These are people's lives that get affected in the process. So I'm not against ending it necessarily unless that's the only choice, and if we have to, then we have to end it well. And do the least amount of disruption to people's lives. And this is really what people want in government, I think.
If you wouldn't end it until 2020, you think we had the money?
I think we got it in 2017. Somebody tells me that Texas is putting together something amazing. And if that thing is up and running and awesome in 2017, maybe we'll do that, but it'll be a game time decision. And I would still be inclined to wait a little longer anyway, just to see how things play out. Because ideally, either this continues to work and we keep it, or if something else comes along, we transition off of it seamlessly and hopefully slowly.
How do you feel about these county clerks that are refusing to issue marriage licenses? Both the major party candidates have said they want some flexibility for these clerks, so they don't have to do this if they don't want to.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. That's their job. And there is a bill that was filed. There were 3 bills filed in respect to this issue. My social conservative friends, I have a wide spectrum of friends, all the way from conspiracy theorists to incredibly liberal people. And my conservative friends tell me that they are being told that they are worried about people filing lawsuits against people who refuse to perform weddings, in particular churches, which that's actually impossible. My mother is a Lutheran pastor. Her father is a Lutheran pastor, so I have that in my back pocket. And they said you can't even sue if they will refuse to perform interracial marriages. Now, I don't know why you would do that, but there's no lawsuit ability there. That said, if that is the actual concern, and it appears to be, there were 3 bills filed, one of which is acceptable. And that is, it's the one that says that nobody can be forced to perform or participate in a ceremony in the state, but if it's your job to issue a license, you have to issue a license. And I think that's pretty fair.
Would you bring any of your digital entrepreneurship expertise to eastern western Kentucky, where they're trying to do this whole broadband, the fiber optic? What could you bring to the table in that situation?
Yeah, so in particular on the broadband thing, aside from the fact that I do know how to code and I do have friends who train people how to code, I also know roughly what it costs and how to implement it. So if you're looking for somebody to bring coding jobs to Eastern Kentucky, I'm the guy who can do it. I also have, like I said, very deep contacts in Silicon Valley. And what's interesting about Kentucky versus Silicon Valley on the tech side of things is that Silicon Valley has a developer shortage. They don't have enough people. Like, trying to find anybody who can code is almost impossible. Interestingly, in Kentucky, I can find people who can code. There aren't a ton of them, but they're around. We have a management shortage. And I think there's something we could probably cross-pollinate these two groups, because the nice thing about having a large broadband connection is you do not have to live in the place that you work for. You could stay here. It's something that a friend of mine called inshoring as opposed to offshoring. I think if we could turn Kentucky into a place to inshore, that would be the way to do it. On the broadband network in particular, I have a question, an open question. I've been asking people if anybody knows where the spec is for the broadband rollout. They're building a large broadband rollout from Lexington to Pikeville. I'm pretty sure the spec is public. I just haven't found anybody who knows where it is. I would like to see that, because I was working with a friend of mine who designed far more complicated broadband networks than I ever did. And we were just sort of doing back of the envelope math, like, what would it cost to upgrade broadband to every home in Kentucky? It's $173 billion, so we can't do it. But what we did find out is that to build the skeletal version of that, which would be, Lexington to Pikeville, Louisville to Bowling Green, whatever, connect the top 15 to 20 cities in the state, we're ballparking that at $250 million. So now I'm very deeply interested in finding out why this other thing cost $300 million, mostly for two reasons. One, either there's something weird going on there, or we are just deeply wrong. And either way, I'd like to know, because if we're deeply wrong, I need to go back and retool this thing. But the upshot is that I can read that spec, and if somebody can give it to me, I can find out what's happening.
Who do you think you take more votes from, Matt Bevin or Peter Jackson?
You know, I don't know. Both parties are deeply dissatisfied with their candidates. 72% of people did not vote for Matt Bevin, so I have a feeling that those are probably more on the table than the Democrat ones. But I honestly don't know. We'll just have to see how it goes. I don't think that what I say is a problem for either party, because I'm talking about doing something completely differently. I keep talking like if we have a left and a right, I'm kind of in the third dimension on the z-axis. This is something completely different.
Did you see yourself as a spoiler?
No, actually, and so I get asked that a lot too. They're asking me like, what if you're going to spoil the race? And so here's what I say about that: the political parties were not actually envisioned in the Constitution. They're not mentioned. And in fact, in George Washington's farewell address, he gave 2 paragraphs to a problem he saw, which was these political parties that were showing up. And what he said was, he said, guys, I don't think this 2-party system thing is a good idea, and let me explain why. And then he launched into essentially everything that we had happened to us for the last 215 years, including his concern that, well, parties might instigate wars in order to try to keep control of the electorate. Not saying that that's happened, but there's a lot. I'm thinking in particular the Spanish-American War, 1896, where the Maine sunk in Cuba's harbor, and that looks a little sketchy. So the problem with it is that all votes do not belong to the 2 parties by default. That's not how this system was envisioned. And in fact, if you want the votes, come get them. People bring up Nader as the example of this, and they say, well, Nader caused Al Gore to lose. Al Gore did not carry Tennessee. Al Gore caused Al Gore to lose. It was not Nader. And so I am not the spoiler in the race. In fact, I would actually pose this question to Kentucky. What if they caused me not to win?
Have you always been an independent for voter registration?
Not for voter registration. I came in as a Democrat because I was advised to, and that was the only state races that matter. But like most people, I have picked a party and have always been independent.
When did you change to independent?
I changed just last year.
And why did you choose your wife to be your running mate, and what role would you envision her?
So actually, it's interesting. So most people don't realize it. I get this question more often than not, and I'm starting to suspect that most people have way worse marriages than we do. We hang out a lot, actually. We back each other up. We like spending time with each other. And not only that, but we have run a company together for 16 years. She is the COO. And most people don't necessarily know, but in order to have an effective leadership in a business, you need to have 2 types of people. You need strategy and you need ops. And so this is basically Steve Jobs and Wozniak, and then later Tim Cook. That's the pairing you need. And there are not that many people who have that entire skill set. In fact, hardly any. One of the examples I like to give is Napoleon had a second in command that died right before the Battle of Moscow, and he never won another battle. And the reason why is because I am not good at ops. I actually can't even possibly think like that. Meanwhile, she's an expert at it. She's also really good at saying, when I come up with a strategy piece, no, that's actually not going to work. You need to rethink it. And so the best part about her being on the ticket is that you get the tandem of both of those qualities. Or I like to say, together we make one good business person.
And what would you do in the administration?
Looks like, well, here. You want to take it?
I think I do what I always do with him. As far as I understand, the lieutenant governor doesn't have any defined responsibilities. So I would be with him as much as I am now, which is every day. And how to
I'll explain it. I told her,
No,
I said,
let
you
me
should
do it.
Okay, go for it. I got it. I got to give him a Cooper. See what you get. See, told you. She's good.
I've been trying to come up with the right metaphor. Basically, he moves mountains, and but I'm there to ask, is that the mountain you want to move? Are you sure? Are you sure that's the right one? How about this mountain? How about leave that mountain alone for a while? And okay, if you really want to move that mountain, where do we put the dynamite? Is dynamite the right choice? Maybe C4. And then I'm there to help clean up. I'm there to build the villages afterwards. And that's what I hope to do for the administration.
So when you said he wants to run for governor, what'd you say?
No. He asked me that 10 years ago, and I said no. And he asked me that a year ago, and I said no. And he asked me to be his running mate, and I said no. And this time he didn't let it go. And this time he kept talking about it. And I think the thing that changed my mind most was the net neutrality bill. Because he's been talking about net neutrality for 10 years.
15. I lobbied for it in 2000, actually, right behind us.
Okay.
Didn't work out.
Wasn't sure how many years it was.
A while ago.
But he cared about that before anybody cared about it, when it was a Republican issue, not a Democrat issue. And he cared about it because it affected us, and because it was interesting. It was a problem that nobody looked at, and that nobody seemed to understand, and that everybody seemed to misunderstand. And he's brilliant. And when he knows about something, there's no stopping him. I don't know anyone more innovative and more creative and smarter. And so when he started talking about some of the governor stuff, some of the politics stuff, it scared me, because some of the stuff he doesn't know about, and he'd make guesses and I'd be cringing. But then he'd read, ask questions, and suddenly he's brilliant again. And so that's when I said yes. That's when he said, be my lieutenant governor, and I said, all right, I'm on board.
I told her, you're going to already do the job anyhow. You might as well get a title and a salary, so why not do it? But that is exactly what she does for us.
Yeah, listen, Grass question. Who did you vote for president in 2012?
So I don't remember, actually, and that's not a dodge. I voted for Obama in 2008. I just honestly don't remember. I think I might have flipped the button to Romney because I have a friend who worked for him who said he was great, but I don't remember. But I did vote for Obama in 2008, and I'll admit that, so that's how you know.
What inspiration, if any, do you take from Gateway Delta?
Actually, so not being political, I wasn't paying a ton of attention to it, but actually I talked to his daughter Molly right out of the gate to sort of find out what was this like. And it was really interesting too, because he tried really, really hard to accomplish some great things, and just wasn't ever quite able to pull it off. But the thing about it is that he pulled 20% at one point. Not this last election, but he got 20% in one of them. And again, we were talking about path to victory and all that. I mean, that's a good head start right there. So.
You said that nobody must pay attention to politics. A lot of your friends.
Most people. I mean, you guys do, but
right.
yeah.
Most people. We're not enough to get anybody elected or unelected governor. So those
Yeah.
are the other people we
Oh, yeah.
really need to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So many of them don't pay attention to politics. And since Jay was jailbroke at his death after trying 7 times, managed 20%, what really is the point of this?
Yeah. Well, I think I can do better is the main thing.
I think you can do better than 20%.
Absolutely. I mean, if I thought I was going to lose, I wouldn't be here. I mean, this was a lot of work. That was the other thing, too, is when I was getting asked, do you have the signatures? I'm like, I absolutely do have the signatures. Why would I be wasting my time going to a fancy farm if I didn't?
You really honestly, sincerely believe you're going to win?
Yes, I do. I believe I can win. I'll put it to you like that. I am conservative in how I play things out, so I leave all options open. But, yeah, I see a path. I see enough people that are not happy or at least ambivalent with the way things are going right now to where we can pull this out.
Are you going to reach those people by social media, or do you have another strategy?
Until campaign donations pick up, that's the only choice we've got. After they pick up, though, going to start working on some other stuff. But basically, my pitch out to people has been, if you think this is a really good idea, I need all the help you can get. So, yeah, we're just going to play it by ear. Yeah, that's basically somebody giving me money to affect my vote on something. So, I'm not getting coal money. That's not going to happen. I mean, I'll take it, but good luck, guys.
How are you going to determine that?
Well, I assume that if somebody gives me money for influence, they will eventually call me up and ask for the influence, and I will say no. That's how I'll determine it.
Does that include PAC money?
Yes, there's no PACs that are backing me. Although the one that I might go with is Mayday. If Mayday or somebody who is interested in taking money out of politics wanted to back me like that, I don't know who all the other ones. I haven't been in contact with any of them, so if Mayday showed up, they're good.
Where did all these signatures come from?
So we started collecting them when we filed in January. The vast majority of them came from a huge effort by some friends of ours in the last few weeks. And then before that, we attended conventions. Actually, so the first batch was at Lexington Comic-Con. Then the next one was at Louisville Pride Fest, did the 4th of July. And then just basically groundwork at that point, just showing up and having my son, for example, when I play soccer 3 times a week, and asking my son if he would take a petition over to the other team while I'm out playing on the field. So it was just one by one, basically one foot in front of the other.
Another issue question. Medical
Sure.
marijuana, big debate right now in the Commonwealth. Where
Yep.
are you on that?
Totally in favor of it. And the reason why, I'll give you the long form answer. They always tell me not to, but totally in favor of it because two reasons. One, there's a little girl at my daughter's school who needs it. Not the synthetic version that's available, but she needs the other version. Secondly, the science behind it is sound, and most of my information of that comes from my friend Jenny Jardin, who writes for a blog called Boing Boing. And when she was 40 years old, she went and I was doing a piece on breast cancer screening. So went and got screened, and they found breast cancer. And so she's been fighting that for several years now and has been taking medical marijuana in California where it's legal. And so I asked her, I was like, so is this real or not? Is this just some way to get marijuana into the system so we can all have it and pretend that this is actually effective? And she said, no, absolutely not. The science is sound. And then launched into a ton of data. So after I heard that, I was like, okay, great. So again, my criterion that does it work? It does. So I'm in favor of it. But again, it's like I'm the governor, so they're going to have to send it over. Otherwise, I can't sign it. I can't just write that into law.
What about recreational?
Recreational, if this legislature passes a copy of Colorado along with something that backs people out of drug offenses, because they forgot that in Colorado, and a couple of tweaks, I would sign it. I don't think they're going to send that one, but that is something that makes economic sense. Several states have already proven it at this point. In fact, it's my belief that eventually it's going to be legal in 100% of the states. And if we jump on that early, there is going to be $1 billion Budweiser of pot showing up somewhere, and it would be great if it was here. But I'm not going to shove real hard for that because that might be something that a Republican Senate couldn't manage to pass through. But if they did, yeah, I'd absolutely take a look at it. I'm just, it's not one of my prime issues, but if it showed up, I would sign it, provided the execution was sound. No unintentional consequences. Or let me give you another example, too. So religious freedom. I get this one a lot. And my answer is Indiana or Utah. Indiana's religious freedom bill is terrible. Utah's religious freedom bill is amazing. It was concocted by the Church of Latter-day Saints, who realized they wanted one of these because they're a church, but they realized that every state that tried to pass it, the LGBT community would rise up and fight it. So rather than just try to ram something through, they actually went to the LGBT community in Utah and said, what version of a religious freedom bill would work for you? And they crafted something that did. And so that's what I'm talking about as far as this is why I keep saying policy is less important. I need to see the effective implementation of it, and I can decide based on that. Or, like I said, the protecting people from having to perform a ceremony. There's 3 bills, only one of them is acceptable. They all say roughly the same thing, but only one of them is any good.
Is that why you describe yourself as a pragmatist as opposed to a liberal or conservative?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, I actually got tagged with Steve Voss said I'm a left-leaning populist, which came as news to me. I was like, what exactly about me would give you that impression? But the populist, maybe, I don't know. But my problem is I don't know political theory, so I don't, know much about where he's coming from, what that even means. I would argue I'm not, but, and I did actually hit him up on Facebook and gave him a little crap about it. But no, I think it's, I'm willing to take any idea from anybody, provided they can give me a reason why it would work. And specifically, the best evidence would be something like Tennessee did it, and it's working like gangbusters down there. Okay, great, then game on, let's go.
So, right to work?
I've looked into right to work a lot. I cannot find data that indicates one way or the other whether or not it improves job situation. It does not appear to have any impact. If data comes out that changes that later, I'll be willing to take a look at it. But as of right now, I've not seen anything. That said, Bowling Green has flipped to right to work in the county, and I think Lexington has too. And there's some question as to whether or not that's legal. I would leave that alone. Let's just see what happens. That's a good experiment, But in general, if right to work is about creating jobs, I have a list of about 100 things that are way easier to implement that I want to try first. And I don't think in 4 years I'm getting down the list that far. And I will also say this, my bias is anti-union. And I still can't prove that it works, so I won't do it. So I told my union friends, you guys are safe. I wish you did a better job. But, I'm not going to, that's like, using a bazooka to kill a mosquito like Monty Python.
Are you going to go file after this?
Yeah, I'm going to wander up there, yeah. Okay, yeah, sounds good. It's getting kind of hot. I know it's like Fancy Farm all over again.
We have our very last signatures coming in with our campaign manager.
Okay, great, good. So we're waiting on a few more, so. All right, great.
Who is your staff?
Heather Chapman here is communications, and then Andrew Souders, who hasn't made it yet, is campaign manager, and he's coming up, and it's just that so far. If we happen to fall into a giant ton of funding, I'll probably hire some people, but, we'll see. Yes, exactly. That would be great.
So with the governor's office, there's a lot of appointed positions.
Yes.
That don't necessarily help with the effectiveness of those institutions that they're the heads of.
Yeah, apparently there's
political
3,600
appointees.
of them, which is what I've been told. I don't know that most of those are probably useful. I mean, we haven't looked into it. We actually were messing around yesterday trying to see what was out there, and general read is most of them probably are useful, but some of them definitely aren't. We'll just figure it out. I would rather use a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer to solve these problems.
I guess one more for me on that same issue
Yeah.
as far as scalpel versus sledgehammer. How do you feel about with the changes that have come, to government that would come as far as working with a split legislature? How would you, obviously you can only sign what they give you. What do you?
Right. I can work with them better than anybody else because, as I understand it, if a party gets the executive, then a lot of lockouts occur. I'm not going to be doing that. I'll talk to anybody about anything, so I can work better with them than any other candidate that's in the race. All right. Well, hey, let's pack up and go inside because it's hot.